Well, we are talking all about firewood today with Andrew Easton from Easton Made Wood Splitters. Firewood splitters and firewood processors are really cool machines. They're simultaneously simple and basic as a machine can get, and also really highly engineered and precise, and they're just really pragmatic machines. The way they do a job that you can do by hand. You can chop wood with a saw or an axe or a chainsaw, and you can split it with them all. But when you see one of these firewood processors do all of that in one shot, it's just a classic example of human ingenuity and innovation and productivity. And I really love it. And my kids like it too. I have it playing on the TV sometimes in the background, and they kind of enjoy watching it happen as well. So we got Andrew on our show. He started Easton Made several years ago in his basement or in his garage making these machines, and has grown it now to be a pretty serious business, shipping wood splitters and firewood processors all over the world. He's a super down-to-earth guy, very salt of the earth, very straightforward and laid back, and I really enjoyed this conversation with him. And if you're a kind of guy who's mechanically inclined and knows how to fix things and build things, you will like this episode, because that's who Andrew is, and he has been able to parlay those skills into a business, a manufacturing business that's successful. Just as he has been successful as a businessman, and it's really inspiring. I hope you enjoy it. Without any further ado, Andrew Easton from Easton Made Wood Splitters.
Well, I warned you guys I was going to show you the wood stove, and there it is. In fact, let me just show you the setting here. There's where we record, and right here I've got this really nice and small wood stove, which I got on Facebook Marketplace last spring for $100 or so, and it heats up this shop nicely. And a year ago when I was doing this, I would be sitting there absolutely freezing my booty off. In fact, I had one of those little propane heaters that I would set up on the ground kind of by my legs to keep me warm, but it usually didn't. And there were some interviews where you could see my breath, and I always wondered if the audience had any idea how freezing cold I was. But it's better now because we are burning wood, and so it was kind of fun for this discussion with Andrew.
Just to start with, and I don't know either, but can you give us the backstory, but just how it is Easton Made came to be, how you got involved with splitting wood and firewood, and kind of get me and the listeners up to speed with who you are and how your company came about?
Well, growing up, Dad was a logger. Like Dad was a logging contractor, so he had all sorts of big, heavy equipment. Good size outfit: bunchers, feller bunchers, chainsaws, skidders, you name it. He had. If it was a piece of logging equipment, he had it. So I grew up, and on the weekends, what I did is I would service all the equipment when it came home, and I would make sure it was all ready to go for Monday morning. So mechanical background, I have a lot of that. And I'm actually a licensed auto mechanic. I went and worked on cars for quite a few years there, so I'm an auto mechanic. And about 2008 or so, Dad had purchased Bell's Machine Shop, so that was the local fabrication shop, and local millwright service was what Bell's originally was. So what Dad purchased that, and I left the job that I was working right at the same time they started building firewood processors. And they started doing firewood processors more as a make work project. In 2008, the market crashed, so all the industrial stuff around town dried up, and the first Bell's firewood processor was just a make work project. We thought we'd build one and not maybe build two or three more at the very most. We never thought it would kind of snowball into this. And in typical father son, we don't work well together. So I left the business, and I went and worked for a local factory for quite a few years as a millwright. So I pulled wrenches there for quite a few years. And then I came back, and I lasted about 4 months with Dad again. And then I left. I said, well, we can't, well, this isn't going to work out for us. There's no point in this. We would get along great if we're not working together. So there's no point in just fighting. So I laughed that I started Easton made wood splitters. My wife was 5 months pregnant. She thought I had lost my mind. Everybody in the neighborhood thought I was right out to lunch, gonna start building wood splitters, and that's kind of how it all started. I built one, and then the next one, the next one. I haven't. Luckily, I have since I did. I haven't been out of work. I've always been busy. So,
Well, you haven't had to work for somebody else. You've probably been working round the clock, but at least not for a paycheck, I guess.
well, it's probably a lot like yourself, mate. Like I don't think I work. I tell people I'm retired. I just have fun stuff to do all day.
Yeah, it's true. It's amazing, like how different it feels when you're doing it for somebody else. Like maybe even when you're a millwright or at Bell's, but versus when you're under your own flag, it's you're having fun. At least that's usually what it's
Oh,
like.
I've like obviously there's been stressful days, no different than any other business, but I really enjoy what I do. I really enjoy the customers. I enjoy the people that I work with. I really do. I've got a good crew of people and a good bunch of people to support me that are just amazing to be around. So
So these firewood processors and wood splitters, they look kind of simple and almost Rube Goldberg, like, oh, of course, it just guts in there and breaks it apart. But I know there's probably a pretty serious amount of engineering and testing that goes into it. And so I get you've got experience with all these things, but talk a little bit about the engineering and maybe your team and who kind of helps dial these things in, because there's a lot of homemade wood splitters and wood processors out there that probably don't produce half the amount of output as one that's been dialed in. So talk about the engineering and your team and kind of how that all works.
for the first Easton made wood splitter, I actually learned AutoCAD myself. I had a couple of beers and sat down on the computer and learned AutoCAD. And obviously, I'm a mechanic. I don't have the expertise as the help I now have working for me. The guys that I have working for me now are incredible. We use a program called SolidWorks that we can pretty well design everything fit finish right to a T on the computer. And the nice thing about it too is like all the people that are working for us are genuinely interested in what we're doing. So like
Hmm.
trial and error stuff is normally pretty quick and easy to prototype and get out there. And we have a wood yard here that we'll try stuff and we'll literally try and break stuff. Like we'll go right out of our way to make sure that when a customer gets it, it's going to be a good piece of equipment. And if it broke a quarter inch, we make it 3/4 inch. We just make it
Hmm.
really heavy. And with the wood splitter too, you really got to consider how much is binding. In terms of performance, it's a lot more basic than what a lot of people probably think it is. You just need to be conscious of pump flows and how fast things move and how much oil, especially with wood splitters, how much oil you have to move at once, because it's once you're dealing with the speeds that we're dealing with, you're moving an awful lot of hydraulic oil, so you have to have everything sized accordingly to be able to do
Hmm.
that.
Here's my next question. And you have a lot of experience with hydraulics growing up around it. And for you, this is just second nature. But for me and a lot of people, hydraulics is something I understand the concept, but the nitty gritty, I don't hardly at all. For example, I just did an oil change on a skid steer with a guy and he was helping me, but it turns out the hydraulic fluid was just engine oil. That's it. We looked at the manual super close and it was weird. And I was like, we just went for it. But a guy at the shop where I bought the oil, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's just think you could even put water in there." I know you shouldn't, but he was just making the point. It could be anything. So, in terms of wood splitters and the hydraulics that are used there, in terms of the logging equipment that you're working on, can you just talk about hydraulics a little bit, big picture? Is it kind of the same basic concepts across all of these machines, or are there things that in your application are quite different than than some other type of hydraulic machine?
Basic principles, honestly, the exact same for any piece of hydraulic equipment. And like the parts guys, right? Yeah, right. As long as it's a fluid and you can pump you can literally use it for hydraulic fluid. Like in your instance, multi-grade oil like 10W30 or 1540 or whatever. It works good for a lot of applications. It's 15 weight when it's cold and it's 40 weight when it's warm, right? In terms of differences for our machines, we run pretty good components on them. Like our valves are rated for right around 5,000 psi, where most log splitter valves are around 2,500. So we can make the cylinder size a lot smaller and get a lot more tonnage out of it. So that's where we get a lot of the performance from on it. And then when we get up into the larger processors, we're starting to run, like, we're running piston pumps and all proportional controls on them. So we have access to every function on the machine just at our fingertips through a laptop. So it's in order to adjust something, to change something, to make sure something's right, it's very, very easy to do and easy to manipulate, which is great because we can do some pretty cool stuff on the bigger equipment now.
Hmm. So in other words, those have a little computer module that you hook your laptop into. That what is that programming, like timing and stuff, or what is that?
Yeah,
How
so
is that
so
working?
so a lot of it will be on timing, and a lot of it will be on pressure too. So there will be actually pressure transducers to send a signal as to what the pressure is on one section of valve, or one function or whatever. And then that way, once it hits that, we can adjust. We can move something else or adjust something else. and
Huh.
and then there's also a handful of sensors on different functions on it. So, like, for example, the saw, when it comes up, it has an angular sensor on it. So when it's coming up, it knows how far it's moved through its stroke. So we can actually set the saw, so it'll come up past your log and then start to slow down. So it just
Oh.
saves some time and saves a lot of movement with the machine. If you look at the machines compared to other ones, it's there's very little movement. They're very, very smooth machine to run.
When you're designing these in the software, do you kind of already know pretty well how well it's going to operate just by the fact that it was designed well? Like, look at this design; it all ties out perfectly. This is going to be amazing. Or is there a lot of like mystery? Like, let's see how it does. Like with a good set of house plans, let's say. A good builder can know just by looking at them, like that's amazing. That look how that engineering all works, and you don't have to walk through it to know. What's that like for you with hydraulics and pressure and actual wood, feeding through for the first time?
It's a lot the same. Like, you can predict things, you can see things quite a ways ahead of you. And again, it comes with experience. No different than a builder or any other trade for that matter. You can foresee things typically long before they happen. And the neat thing about that too is, it's no matter what. I'm sure even for the builder, there's always that little sense of satisfaction when it actually works out, right? So.
Yeah. Why is there no, like, let's say like John Deere or Caterpillar? I've been surprised, as my YouTube feed is all wood splitters right now. I don't know how it happened, but I clicked on one from Buchan, and it was one of your splitters. And I think from there, YouTube's like, oh, he'll love all this stuff. Anyways, I've been surprised that there's not like John Deere and Caterpillar and Case wood splitters like all the other equipment, and it's mostly boutique kind of smaller
Yeah.
wood splitting outfits. Why do you think that is?
I honestly don't know. Like, I think it's one of those things that a lot of bigger manufacturers, for some reason, don't really want to get into it, and I don't know why. Like, honestly, it's been profitable for me, obviously, and I've had incredibly good luck with it. And like, I don't know why, like a brand like Land Pride or something like that wouldn't
Yeah.
wouldn't take something like this on to do it. I don't know if there's maybe if they don't feel there's quite the volume there, but I know from my experience, there's a pretty huge market there, especially once you go globally. Like, we've started shipping machines to the UK and Australia, New Zealand, and stuff. So there's a huge global market there, especially having the resources that those companies would have to be able to move things, and the logistics teams they would have. I would think it'd be very, very simple for them to do that and make a profitable business out of it.
Yeah, or like Vermeer, they're already doing all these wood products. Like, why is there not a big firewood processor? You know what? Maybe it is like, at least among tractors, there's a lot of components that overlap. That they're kind of just taking a lot of the same parts and pieces, and maybe on a firewood processor, it's like it's more complete retooling than just making a new size of a tractor for John Deere or something. Maybe it really is a whole different animal.
I think that would be a lot of, like, I know myself, like, we've like, just having the knowledge and basic understanding of it. It takes a while to it'd be no different than building any other piece of equipment for that matter.
Yeah.
Either once you have experience with doing it, again, you can foresee what's going to happen. Maybe that's it, that they just can't be bothered with it if they're already profitable doing it. I don't know why a company like Vermeer. I'm surprised Vermeer doesn't kind of step into the ring with that too. But Vermeer would do like drastically more chippers than we would ever do processors, and I would think that there'd be way more market for process or for chippers than there ever would be for processors.
Yeah, that's true. And there's also like a regional aspect. Firewood doesn't get burned near the extent in the lower United States, and certainly like some countries even burn a lot less wood than you up in Canada. So it could just be like it does their supply chain is all oriented maybe in other parts of the world where firewood's just not really as big a market as what you guys are involved with. Oh, I guess you're shipping them all over the world anyway. So,
Yeah,
huh?
we've sent them we've sent them just about everywhere, even places where you wouldn't think you'd sell a lot of wood sweaters, like hotter climates. Like we have them there. Obviously not as many as in the northern part of the country here, and
Huh?
but on that note, like I think you're exactly right with that, because once you go further south, the population gets greater. You go to different areas, and there's more people to buy stuff,
Yeah.
and a lot more demand.
In terms of it's the end of 2021 right now, and in the US supply chains are kind of messed up. We've got shortages. I've got things I've been ordering on Amazon that are like not showing up, that I think it's related to that. So what's it been like for you guys? Have you been dealing with the impact to acquiring parts and pieces for your machines, or what's the impact been like up there?
You definitely have to be dynamic with it. You definitely have to be on the ball and be creative sometimes. For the most part, like most of our hard components, like valves, pumps, stuff like that, we have some pretty good suppliers for that. Pretty good people that we've partnered with. We
Yeah.
haven't seen too much of a supply chain issue with it. We try to be pretty proactive with things too. Like even right now, like we're booking probably about 40 weeks out for parts.
Wow.
We have POs in that far. We're looking to get out to about 52 weeks. And most suppliers are asking for that now.
Oh, wow.
In the instance that if this would have happened 4 or 5 years ago when I first started doing it, it would be very, very difficult to get stuff. It'd be very difficult to plan things. Where now, now that we have a really, really good established business, it's not as nerve wracking to put in a PO that's out 52 weeks for us. We know we can build so many machines a day, a week, a month, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's not too bad in that respect. We still have a handful of smaller items that are tricky to get your hands on. I don't know why. Like trailer wheels are tricky.
Huh.
A lot of trailer parts that are hard to get your hand on, and it seems to be the more basic stuff that mean it seems to be more difficult to get. And obviously, you can't send a wood splitter out with the wheels on it, right? So you're missing one wheel, it kind of holds up the whole
Yeah.
production line. But again, we have a really incredible team here that is really good at kind of staying ahead of it, and different supply chains and different avenues that we've used to in order to stay on top of things. So
Wow. So it makes perfect sense with your background how you've been able to develop great wood splitters and firewood processors, but most of what you do, at least it seems to me, like running this business and procuring parts and managing this big team and all that is actually just as complicated and maybe difficult. How have you become? To what do you attribute your success at running a business? Considering, like you said, you have the hands-on mechanical side on lockdown. To what do you attribute like picking up the business side of this?
I like again. My dad's always been a business owner. My mom, my mother too. Both of them are entrepreneurs.
Huh.
Dad's a lot more hyper than I am, but he's very, very crafty. But I've had good people around me. Like it's not this isn't a one man show by no means at all. I have an
Huh.
incredible team of people, and as you grow, you get more people, and you put different people and delegate. And I think that was the hardest part for me to do is years ago I would try and literally do everything myself. Like I would
Yeah.
do everything from one end of it to the other end of it, I've learned that you can't do that. You just can't. Like you get to a certain point, and you have to more delegate and make sure you put the right people in charge of certain things to make sure stuff happens and stuff is done. In communication's key with it. If you can't communicate with people, if you can't uh, let people know what's going on, or how you feel, or what the next step is, they'll never know. Like I think most people are genuinely showing up to work to try and do their best, and that's certainly the case for our team here. So.
Wow. What is there one part of the business that you particularly enjoy? For example, assembling or work, like your time as a mechanic. I got to think to some extent you enjoy that. If you had like a day with nothing pressing, where would you go at the business, and what would you spend your time working on?
Honestly, I like doing it all. I really, I don't think there's like, there's not an aspect of it I don't think I enjoy doing
Yeah.
myself. I like the welding, I like sandblast and painting, the assembly. Like I'm pretty easy in that respect. I don't, I don't favor one job over the other. I think they're all good, and a lot of it's just the attitude you have going into it. If you have a good attitude when you go to a party, it doesn't matter whether there's 1,000 people there or two. You're gonna have a good time, right? So,
Yeah. This might be not as important of a question, but I'm still curious. How what brought you to picking these cool colors of orange and blue for your splitters?
well, that's a good story. Actually, we're gonna try and do a YouTube video on that one day. I've got it wrote down on my list of videos. We were actually
Well,
sitting at the
you don't have
local.
to spoil it, but they are so
It's
beautiful, and I
fine.
figured there's probably a reason why.
I wouldn't have painted them orange or blue. I'll tell you that right now. I told them they were nuts.
Wow, that is so funny.
we
I
were.
I
I had just started Easton, man. Like literally like a couple of weeks into it, sort of thing, and having a couple of beers with friends at the local pub here, and we were sitting there and we were talking about, oh, I gotta paint this machine. I just finished fabbing the first one up. Oh, I gotta paint this machine, and he said it's got to be two tone. Like, it doesn't matter
yeah,
if you paint something one solid color, it just doesn't stand out. It doesn't have the same impact on people. And there was already the Timberwolf was red and silver. Built Rate was blue and green, or black and green, and Corking. There's already a lot of different colors, and
sure.
I've always liked orange. So, well, I should paint it orange, and then. My friend's wife from across the table, orange and blue. I want to paint him Denver Broncos. I said, "You're right, Uncle Lad. You're not going to paint something orange and blue." And then my wife's a hairdresser, so she's Stacy's. Again, she owns her own business, and she's very very gifted at what she does, and obviously knows a lot about colors. Oh no, they're complementary colors. They'll go good. And you think about, like, Edmonton Oilers, Nashville Predators, New York
Yeah.
Islanders. Or orange and blue are complementary colors, so they actually look good together. I thought they were right out to lunch. There's no way I was.
That's funny. I've always, since I was a little kid, really liked orange and blue as a combo. I don't know why. It wasn't for any particular reason. As a side story, though, when I was a little kid, my grandpa had a storage business, and the sign I remember was yellow and red, and I really didn't like those two colors. I associated them with like Ronald McDonald, and like, I don't know, it just felt like kind of circusy, yellow and red. Later in my life, my dad, who our listeners of course know really well, he built a sawmill, and later in when he got it back later, he painted it new, and he painted it yellow and red again. And I remember thinking again, like, oh my gosh, here's this yellow and red. I don't get it. Anyways, what I built a storage business a couple years ago, and I don't know what it was, but when the time came to like make a sign, it was yellow and red. It was just like, it was like for some reason, like that's the first storage business I saw. It stood out to me all those times. I don't know what it was, but these colors kind of like present themselves, and I love it now. But there's always a little more to it. So I'll be looking forward to hearing the full deep story about that on your channel. Well, that's really cool.
I really thought they were out to lunch, and I thought, well, all I can do is try. Like, it turned obviously they look really really sharp, and the biggest thing for me is I wanted to with any business like this, an important end of its branding, right?
Yeah.
It's just no different than a John Deere tractor. You see a John Deere tractor from a mile away, you know it's a John Deere tractor. It's yellow and green, right?
Right.
So that was kind of the big thing, and actually a local guy, Gordy McClellan, builds wood splitters here, and he's been building for years and years. But if you see Robin Egg's blue wood splitter, it's a Gordy. It's a Gordy McClellan splitter. You can see it from a mile away. You know that's one of Gordy's splitters.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that I had that for my brand, and had something that you could send out there to people that fit, and people recognize it instantly, right? So.
Yeah, I love that. That's cool. So a couple more questions for you. as someone who's got a lot of experience with big engines and small engines, can you give me and the viewers just the crash course? I know at the moment you're putting Vanguard engines in a lot of your machines, but you've also got Kubota and Honda and kind of all sorts of them. Is there any way to think about these small engines in terms of what you've learned about which ones are your favorite or most well suited for this? Or in this day and age, are kind of like trucks, they're all awesome. So how do you kind of think about these small engines these days?
I
And big
think
engines like your Kubotas.
I think you hit the nail right on the head there. Like it's like I don't think you can really buy a bad truck. Like it doesn't matter whether it's a GM, Ford, Dodge. Like you're gonna buy a good quality piece, and I think engines are the exact same as that. Like it's not like 30 or 40 years ago where you had like points and carburetors and all that kind of uh, mechanical ignitions and stuff like that. You don't have that. It's all solid state now. So there's very
Mm-hmm.
little to go wrong with them. And machining practices now today, it doesn't seem to matter where you go. The machining tolerances with the equipment that's available today, and that all of these factories are running, you can make the tolerances so precise that I don't think it would ever matter. Like we haven't run the Hondas for about a year now. Just again, supply chain issues. Honda wasn't going to be able to supply us with what we needed, and it seemed to be a constant, ongoing problem is getting engines.
Mm-hmm.
And Vanguard, we've been running them for about a year, and we've literally, I think I put an ignition coil on one once. So like
Wow.
very little issues ever at all, and happy we made the switch. It's something a little bit different for guys, and they've proven themselves to be incredibly reliable. And then like the Kubota motors, again, a lot of it comes down to branding, right? That we don't want to. We can get other engines that are a little less expensive, but it doesn't matter where you go. Every corner's got a Kubota dealer on that's capable of making the
Yeah.
repair on the equipment, right? So it's that means a lot to people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really neat. These small engines are, like you said, maybe in the 50s and 60s when they were harder to come by, and not that they were new then, but at this point they've been around. Small engines like that have been around for so long. All these manufacturers have had plenty of time to really improve them. But I guess I wasn't paying attention. So Vanguard is Briggs and Stratton's name that they fly their small engines under, or what is Vanguard actually?
Like the Vanguard Briggs are like it's a Briggs and Stratton engine, but it's like their top quality line. Like Honda,
Oh,
a lot of people don't realize, but Honda does the same thing. Like you can buy a GX series Honda, which is the good professional brand Honda, but you can also buy a GC series Honda, which is kind of the bargain
oh,
brand, right? And each
oh,
engine manufacturer has the same um same scenario going on. Like Kohler's got the Command Pros, and they have the other. Not quite sure what Kohler's other name is, but they normally have two or three tiers of quality.
oh, oh.
And
Okay,
the Vanguard engines are Briggs top quality, and so far it's proven that's the case. So
interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. All right. Well, a couple more questions for you, just about the technical aspects. You're building big equipment, especially the processors are huge, and you're shipping them all over the world. Sometimes just that aspect of like shipping and exporting seems so complicated, even like from a legal standpoint. Like how to get your stuff into another country. We've shipped some very small products overseas. It's always a nightmare. How have you kind of figured that out, or is it just kind of self-explanatory and you just kind of do it, or what's that like? For example, I'm in Oregon in the U.S. Are you shipping equipment into the U.S. all the time, and is there anything people need to know if they're not in Canada about buying your equipment?
no, honestly, like again, it all comes down to paper. Because as long as you have the proper paperwork, stuff follows back and forth pretty good. It like all of our stuff would fall under NAFTA. I'm not quite sure what they call it now. They changed it there a couple of years ago, whatever it is. It's essentially the exact same thing from our perspective. But for the most part, it goes into the country tax free. Like if you're going to buy in the United States, it goes in tax free. No duties
Oh,
or anything on it. And it comes down to like the code. It goes in a piece of logging equipment. Whether it be
huh.
a processor or a splitter, there's a handful of states that you're going to live in that are going to catch up with you on the tax. They'll ding you for the sales tax. Pennsylvania and California are the two that I know for sure.
Oh.
So if you're in either one of those states and you buy an Easton made, we always tell you you're going to get a tax bill for that.
Mhm.
Most other states don't. It's tax free in almost every state. So
Oh, so that's really neat. It's pretty simple then.
yeah, it's very very simple. The biggest hurdle we'll normally run into when we're shipping stuff is offloading it, because you need to have a tractor,
Mm.
skid steer, forklift, and a lot of people like these machines are heavy. Even the log splitter, you're looking at a 2,500 pound piece.
Yeah.
They're not light.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times we'll get it to a customer's house and have a compact tractor, and then they just it
Got it.
won't lift it. You need something with good lift capacity to actually get it off the truck,
Yeah.
to be able to offload it.
Yeah, and the trucks, they're not equipped. They're simply delivery trucks. They're not bringing their own forklift or anything at that point.
No, nothing like that. We actually have one. We have one driver that we work with that we almost use exclusively. Obviously, there's a handful of scenarios like if we're going to go to
Yeah.
Oregon. A lot of the times we won't have a whole lot going that way, so it'll go on its own individual truck. But
Yeah.
the fellow that we have that does most of the deliveries for us is set up pretty well where he has a set of ramps and everything on it. So if need be, you can actually pull it down the ramps with your truck. So
Oh, that's cool. So, talk about YouTube and how what made you kind of start filming yourself and some of your splitters and what that's been like for your business and what you've learned by doing that and what you think that's going to look like going forward.
it's helped out immensely for us, and I really enjoy doing it. Like I like doing YouTube videos. I hope to get back into doing them on a more regular basis. Like last year this time I was doing a video or two videos a week sort of thing and trying to keep up with
Yeah.
content, and obviously acquiring the new business here has been like it's been a busy spot. There's a lot going on, so it's hard to take the time to do that. In terms of actually getting into it, I think it was more or less a response. I did a lot of work on Facebook, and then I honestly didn't even do a lot on YouTube until about 2 years ago, and I started getting more subscribers and more subscribers, and I found it's kind of an odd thing because on YouTube I tend to get a lot of really positive feedback. Like it's like and even the criticism positive. Like it's always somebody wanted to help you or do better, actually give you constructive criticism. Where I found on Facebook it was actually the exact opposite. There was a lot of a lot of
Wow.
skeptics. I don't even know why. It's
Oh.
funny you could post the same video to the exact same video to two different platforms and get two entirely different responses to it, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Um, because until somebody sees one of these machines working, they don't. A lot of people don't understand. They're like, well, that's a lot of money for wood splitter. Well, you're right, but I like to compare it to like a zero turn lawn tractor. I
Yeah.
like that. That's the analogy I always try to use with people is you can buy like your standard ride-on mower and do an acre or 2 acres of grass, but if you're going to get in the business of cutting grass, you're going to go buy a zero turn.
Yeah.
Or if you have a lot of grass to cut and you want something good, you're going to buy a zero turn. You're going to buy a proper mower, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good analogy. What's the fire in terms of the firewood business? I know there are people, in areas who have in some cases massive businesses of, producing firewood and shipping it and but then there's also a lot of people it's just kind of a hobby or a side hustle or just like almost like a hobby, I guess, even just for the
yeah,
fun of it. So how do you describe the firewood industry in terms of how many people are dead serious, how many people are just having fun with their kids, and how many people just like busting wood? What's it like if there
it,
was a
it
mix?
it is a wild spread from one spectrum to the other to the guy that just want like we've had people that literally will buy one to do a couple of quarter wood a year, which is fantastic. They just and it's worked out well for a lot of guys. Like in terms of investment, like most people if they bought a machine 2 or 3 years ago, they're able to sell for actually more money than what they paid for it.
Yeah,
So,
for
so
sure.
in terms of investment, it's been pretty good for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
um, we you can go right from somebody that's doing it just to have some beer money at the end of the week to people that are having incredible businesses from doing firewood, and it's like we deal with everybody right from one end to the other. Like
Huh.
with the processors, like um, we have guys that don't turn them off. Like they literally run them all of the time.
Wow.
Like they turn them off to put fuel in them, and they might shut it down for like but they'll run them all day every day.
Wow. They turn them off on like Christmas and New Year's, basically.
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of like 7-Eleven. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
that it's all about getting logs, really. So for these guys, they're purchasing logs from like what, like stuff that wasn't good enough for the sawmill, or where do these guys get logs on a scale, big enough or like yourself, you have a wood yard in your near your shop there, I've seen. And could you describe like where firewood kind of comes from on the commercial aspect for people?
again, a lot of it comes down to relationships, like and getting out and talking to people because there's most area there's quite a few loggers around that will bring you a steady supply, especially for a firewood processor. You can run really dirty stuff through one, but you don't simply don't make any time with it. You can split it,
Mm,
you can run it, you can manipulate it, but it's no different than anything else. You have to start with a good product in order to make a really good product, right?
mm,
But for the most part, it'll be stuff that's in between. Almost always, it's going to be stuff that's in between pulpwood and saw logs. Is essentially what it's going to be. It's going to be stuff that ranges anywhere from that 8 to 16 inches that might have a bad core in it or
mm.
dark spots or whatever. And that's normally what gets turned into firewood. And that's quite a bit of wood, honestly. So um, for the most part, like that's what it is you have to establish a relationship with a logger, especially somebody that's got mechanized equipment like feather
Wow.
bunchers and grapple skidders and stuff, because you can produce a lot. Like those guys that are running that big equipment produce a lot of wood, like a lot
Uh-huh.
of wood. They put a lot of wood on the ground, and especially if you have a good relationship with them, a good working relationship with them, it's very convenient for a lot of those guys, because more often than not, it's closer to home than what the pulp mill or sawmill will be, and it's a spot where you can literally go and drop wood off. Like I know Dad when he was like he loved the firewood processor guys. He thought that was great. He could go and drop 2 or 3 loads off in the guy's yard, and yeah, you knew
Yeah.
he was going to pay you for it because he needed it. So
Yeah.
once you have that good working relationship with somebody, it tends not to be that big of a deal. And then again, it's a relationship with any business. I think that's a lot of things that people forget is the whole thing is a relationship. Whether it's between you and a supplier, you and a customer. So
Wow. That's really cool. Okay, last kind of area here, and you hinted at it in saying you recently bought the business. Can you talk about this new business or expansion, or describe what you were talking about there, and maybe tie that to your intro? In terms of you spent some years, you said working in, or maybe months, I'm not sure, working at Bell's, but will you fill in that crack for us?
yeah, so I had started Easton made about 7 years ago. It was well, probably 7 years ago, right? I would say even this week, as a matter of fact. So about 7 years ago, I started Easton made. I started in literally my basement. My basement garage is where I started. I had an old welder that wasn't a great welder, and old chops on a couple of grinders. Like
Huh.
literally something we put together, and then it's grown into a very recognizable large business right now, and the acquisition of Bell's was my father was ready to retire, and I was at the point where I literally had no more room at my house to grow. Like I bought Dad's truck shop. Like he had the logging business. He sold it about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. He sold the logging business. So right around that same time, I needed more room. I moved in here, and then same thing. I completely and totally outgrew the shop at home here. Like 2 weeks ago was when we moved everybody from one business into the other. We've
Mm.
we've been running the other business for about since February there now. So whatever that works out to 8 or 9 months.
Yeah.
And the the shop here was just completely full. That you couldn't jam another piece of equipment in it, another chunk of steel. So
Yeah.
and they got the guys that worked for me did a really good job of what they had to work with. Like biggest thing with it is staying organized, right, and
Yeah.
doing the best and having a good attitude with it. So we purchased I purchased Bell's machine shop off my father. He was ready to retire. So yeah, the timing of it worked out really really well.
Yeah. He must be so, I don't know, proud seeing you like spin up Easton Made and now take over. That's got to just be like best case scenario for him and you and everybody, I would think. I'm sure it's complicated, but still, that just seems like such a cool you know, twist.
Oh yeah, no, it's been going really good. Like it's Dad's super excited, but he's happy to finally be retired. He golfed an
Yeah.
awful lot this summer, and he plays a lot of hockey still,
Oh,
and
cool.
so he's able to go and do those things he enjoys doing. Where before uh, the stress level, I guess maybe, or the time constraints, he wasn't able to do a lot of that. Where now he is. Where I tend to not get too excited about a whole lot, and I will take the time, and you have to take the time for yourself. With any life, you have to balance personal pleasure and business. That's always a juggling act, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's great, Andrew. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. My last question: if you had to attribute, I don't know, one thing about yourself or personality, or one, I don't know, piece of advice for someone who's not necessarily interested in splitters, of course, but this is a really just a kind of classic story of a guy, with dirt under his fingernails and more of the mechanical knowledge, taking that and really making a neat business. So, to what do you attribute that, or what would you say to someone who's has those same types of hopes and dreams for themselves?
you gotta have patience, and you gotta have the right attitude. Those are the two things, and because and anybody can learn anything. I'm a firm believer in that. You can teach a monkey to read if you wanted to, but you have to have the patience to be able to do that, and you have to have the right attitude for it. Obviously, you have to have a certain level of drive to do that. But if you have the right attitude, and you're going to be able to do it, you have the right attitude to want to get up and do it every day. That's a big thing, and that goes. I think that goes such a long way. Is you can't be. You may as well enjoy it. You're gonna be here. You may as well walk in with a smile on your face and have as much fun with it as you can, because that at the bottom line, you're there all day. And
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, and you got to be patient, especially with again, with every relationship you have to have some patience and tolerance there. So
Well, we're going to link to your YouTube channel and to your website for Easton Made Splitters. Is there anywhere else? I'm going to link to that Buckin video because, like I said, he's using your Axis splitter. And I don't know what YouTube predicted it. They know me well, but they're like, he's going to like that. And I sure did. There's something about watching these machines, watching any machine, but it's fun watching wood get split also. Is there anything else we should point them to, or do you think would be particularly like fun for people to watch after they listen to this?
if they're interested in log splitters and stuff, just search Easton Made on YouTube. There we have quite a few different YouTubers that are running equipment, and it's actually pretty entertaining because everybody, a lot of the guys will be running the same splitter, same equipment, sort of thing, and everybody's got a different personality, different persona, and how they do it. So it's really nice to see everybody's different take on, and especially if you're interested in getting into this business and taking this on either professionally or as a hobby. You get to see every different aspect of it there.
Yeah. Oh, that's too cool. Well, hey, Andrew, can't thank you enough. Congrats on all the growth and on this new shop coming together. And I'm just excited to see what kind of comes out next. Probably nothing earth shattering, but just more of the same. I can't wait to see one of those things roll down the street here in Oregon someday. And like you said, with the orange and blue, I'll recognize it from a mile away. So, looking forward to that. Thanks for coming on. And is there anything we're forgetting here to leave people with?
I don't think so. I really enjoyed the conversation, Nate, and the opportunity to speak to you. That's fantastic.
All right. Well, keep up the good work, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Take care.